The phone rang, a jarring interruption to the spreadsheet spread across his desk. It was a Wednesday afternoon, deadlines looming, and Vijay barely registered the unfamiliar number flashing on his screen. He almost didn't pick up. Work consumed him, always had. But some faint echo in the ringing made him answer. "Hello?" he said, a touch impatient. The voice on the other end stole his breath away. "Beta, it's me, your papa." Vijay's heart stuttered. His father? They hadn't spoken in months, not really spoken. Not since the last argument, the last slammed phone, the familiar wall of silence rebuilt between them. Yet, here was his father's voice, thin and raspy, seeping into his sterile office cubicle, pulling him back years. The hospital room was dim, shadows stretching across the walls, the air heavy with the sharp scent of antiseptic and the quiet hum of distant machines. Yet beneath it all lingered something else, something unsettling, a sense of time slipping away, of moments lost and never to return. Outside the window, the city lights blurred and shimmered, mirroring the confusion and haze in his own heart, each light a memory flickering on the edge of fading. His father lay asleep, his breath shallow and uneven, the once strong hands now frail and trembling on the white sheet, a stark reminder of time's relentless march. Vijay hadn't realized how much his father had aged until now, how the years had quietly etched lines into his face and silvered his hair. He sat by the bedside, silent, memories swirling around him like dust motes in the weak afternoon sunlight, each one catching the light for a moment before drifting away. He remembered the park where his father taught him to ride a bicycle, his laughter echoing in the summer air, the feeling of safety in his father's steady hands. The countless cricket matches watched together, his father's cheers louder than any in the stadium, their shared excitement binding them in those fleeting moments. But there were other memories too, sharper ones. Arguments over career choices, heated words exchanged in frustration, disagreements over life decisions that left wounds slow to heal. The chasm of unspoken expectations widened between them, filled with regrets and words left unsaid, as Vijay wondered if it was now too late to bridge the distance. Vijay had always been a serious child, focused, driven. His father, a retired schoolteacher, had a more gentle approach to life. He valued relationships, simple joys, the beauty of a shared moment. They were cut from different cloth, their aspirations misaligned. It created a distance, a gap they never quite bridged. Vijay pursued his career with a single-minded focus, climbing the corporate ladder, each rung taking him further away from his family, from his father. Success, he believed, would bridge the gap. It didn't. It only built a wall of unspoken resentments, missed opportunities, and a growing fear that time, unlike success, was a finite resource. "Beta!" His father's voice trembled over the phone, carrying a weight that years of silence could not erase. There was a hesitation, a pause that seemed to stretch across the miles between them, as if his father was searching for the right words, or perhaps the courage to say them. I wanted to hear your voice. It's been so long, and I find myself missing you more than I ever thought possible." Vijay closed his eyes, his father's vulnerability a punch to the gut. The years of distance, of unspoken words, suddenly felt unbearably heavy. He'd spent years hardening himself to that voice, that tone, building walls to protect himself from disappointment and pain. Now, it cracked the carefully constructed walls around his heart, letting in memories and longing he thought he'd buried. His father spoke, words spilling out, a torrent of apologies and regrets. He spoke of sleepless nights, of moments lost, of things he wished he could change. He spoke of his pride, his love, and the silent hopes he'd always carried for his son. Things never articulated in their years of strained silences, words that had always hovered just out of reach. He spoke of the past, of misunderstandings, of his own failings, asking for forgiveness with a humility that was new and raw. Vijay listened, his own throat tight, every word from his father echoing in the quiet spaces of his heart. Tears blurring the city lights outside his office window, he realized how much he'd longed for this moment, for this connection. He listened as his father, in a voice thick with love and the weariness of fading time, tried to bridge the gap that had grown between them. And finally, his father said the words Vijay had yearned to hear for so long, words that promised healing, forgiveness, and the hope of a new beginning. Guilt, sharp and cold, twisted in Vijay's gut. How many calls had he ignored? How many visits postponed? Work, deadlines, the relentless pursuit of achievement, all suddenly meaningless against the backdrop of his father's frail voice. He should have been there. He should have picked up the phone more often. He should have listened, truly listened, not just waited for his turn to speak. But work. Work was always there, a demanding companion, whispering promises of security and success. Family, he realized with a painful jolt, waited for no deadline. The drive to the hospital was a blur of flashing lights and frantic prayers. His father's voice, filled with a lifetime of unspoken emotions, echoed in his ears. He gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs. He prayed he wouldn't be too late, but the silence that greeted him at the hospital room door was deafening. The bed was empty, the sheets neatly folded back. A single withered rose lay on the pillow, its fragrance a poignant reminder of life's fleeting beauty. His father was gone, slipped away as peacefully as he had lived, and Vijay, despite his frantic race against time, had missed him. He sat by the empty bed, the sterile scent of the hospital room suffocating. His father's voice, filled with regret and love, played on a loop in his mind. He'd waited too long to listen, to understand. Now, there was only silence. The regret was a physical ache. All the missed opportunities, the unspoken words, the years lost to pride and misunderstanding, they all crashed over him like a tidal wave. He was left drowning in a sea of what-ifs and if-onlys, the weight of his father's unspoken love and his own unexpressed gratitude a crushing burden. Time, he realized, was not a commodity to be negotiated or bartered away in the rush of daily life. It wasn't just a resource to be managed, scheduled, or divided into tasks and deadlines. Time was a gift, precious, finite, and irreplaceable, given freely to each of us, yet so often overlooked or taken for granted in the noise of our routines. His father had taught him this lesson, not through grand speeches or elaborate gestures, but through his final act of love. A quiet, powerful moment of forgiveness that spoke louder than words ever could. As Vijay walked out of the hospital, the weight of the night still heavy on his shoulders, he paused to watch the first rays of dawn painting the sky in hues of pink and orange, a silent promise of new beginnings. In that quiet moment, Vijay carried a newfound understanding in his heart, a gentle but profound realization that every second mattered. Life, he now knew, was simply too short for regrets, for unspoken words left hanging in the air, or for the invisible walls we build around our hearts to keep others out. He vowed to live differently from that day forward, to love fiercely, to forgive freely, and to embrace vulnerability as a strength, not a weakness. He promised himself to never let another precious moment slip by without expressing the emotions that truly mattered, whether through words, gestures, or simple presence. Vijay would carry his father's love with him always, a guiding light, and a bittersweet reminder to cherish the gift of time. He understood now that time spent with loved ones, laughter shared, and forgiveness given were the true treasures of life. And he resolved to never let the fear of vulnerability silence the whispers of his heart, for in embracing time and love, he would finally be free.